Welcome to the November 2019 Star Wars Canon Update. Last month we got 8 new episodes of television, 2 new video games, 2 new books, and 7 new comic issues, so let's get started. And since The Mandalorian is still pretty new, just in case you've never watched my Canon updates before, there will be spoilers in this video, so be warned. The Mandalorian was finally released on November 12th with its series premiere. It was a perfect balance between classic, lighthearted Star Wars and gritty Western. We also got to learn some interesting new Mandalorian lore and see that the MacGuffin for at least these first few episodes is a baby of Yoda's species. I thought the second episode was a little goofier and not as impactful, but I still had a lot of fun with it. The Mandalorian's ship is ripped apart by Jawas, so he has to do a favor for them before they'll give his ship parts back. It didn't move the story along so much, but it was still crazy entertaining and let us learn about the Mandalorian as a person. The third episode was my favorite of the month, feeling like the end of the arc established by the first two. Honestly, it felt like it could have been the season finale. The Mando turns the baby over to the Empire and gets all that Beskar converted into a new set of armor, but he quickly feels guilty about what he did and goes against the Bounty Hunters Guild to save the baby. With the help of his fellow Mandalorians, he is able to escape. The fourth episode was a little slower, more personal, and kind of a transition between the first 3 episodes and whatever is coming next. But it was still a really fun, Western or samurai-inspired tale of the Mando teaming up with an ex-soldier to help farmers defend their homes from raiders who happen to have an AT-ST. Everything about the AT-ST was especially awesome to me, with it being shot and treated like a monster. It's safe to say that The Mandalorian is off to a killer start. Moving on to Star Wars Resistance, the 5th episode of the season, titled The Engineer, introduced a helpful character named Nina that revealed herself to be working for the First Order. It was a good episode with a solid message about helping yourself versus helping others. The 6th episode, From Beneath, was a little fillery, with Flix taking Kaz and crew back to his homeworld to pick up some fuel for the Colossus, which came with a message about treating your environment with responsibility. Next up was The Relic Raider, which sounded exciting in the build-up, but wound up being kinda boring. Kaz and company explore a Sith temple where they meet an elderly Force user. She is after a relic, hoping to keep it out of the First Order's hands. At the end of the episode, she returns to the Colossus with them. And in the final episode of the month, Rendezvous Point, Torra attempts to reunite with her mother, who is a Resistance pilot, on her birthday. Their meetup fails, but Vanessa Doza winds up captured by the First Order, where she has a heart-to-heart with Tam before escaping. This episode and The Engineer were my 2 favorites of the month. Stepping into the video game world, I'm going to try really hard to talk briefly about Fallen Order, but I love this game. I adore the story and the characters. I don't want to get into spoilers here because it's only been out a couple weeks, and that seems like not enough time for everyone to get through it. I will say that the story isn't super connected to the Skywalker saga, so you don't need to rush to play it to prep for The Rise of Skywalker, but you should definitely play it. It is one of my favorite stories to come out of the new canon so far. Vader Immortal Episode 3 was the final chapter in the VR experience. It was fun, but didn't reveal as much new story as the previous 2 chapters. It was more of an extended action sequence where we got to use everything we learned. We stopped Vader from activating the Bright Star by destroying it. That prevents him from reviving Padme, but also releases healing energy back into Mustafar, which will supposedly allow it to be full of life again, eventually. The whole series was fun, and I think it comes with the Oculus Quest for free now if you're interested. I don't know that I'd recommend picking up a Quest just for this, but it was a very cool and immersive experience, and I hope ILM continues introducing more VR stories down the line. Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse was the big book release of the month. As part of the Journey to the Rise of Skywalker line of stories, it picks up almost immediately after the events of The Last Jedi to see how the Resistance begins to pick itself back up. It was a really great story with a ton of connections to previous Star Wars books, comics, video games, and more. It was a really rewarding read as someone who takes in all of that content. If you only check out one story in Journey to the Rise of Skywalker, you should make it this one. And you can grab the audiobook for free with an Audible trial by clicking on the link in the description or by visiting www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. Force Collector was the young adult entry to Journey to the Rise of Skywalker. It's about a Force-sensitive teenager who can touch objects to see their past through the Force. It takes place shortly before The Force Awakens, and he travels the galaxy to learn more about the Jedi since there's no one around to teach him about his powers. While I think the premise is an interesting one, I didn't really get into the actual story, so I'd probably recommend skipping it, but it's also available on Audible if you're interested. The final 2 issues of the main Star Wars comic brought the series to an end last month. Our heroes all finally found themselves back together on a planet with giant rock monsters fighting with the Empire and Vader, and then they escape and head to Hoth. That's pretty much it. This final arc was kinda boring, and it just felt like it was meandering around until the series could reach Hoth. The best part about it was seeing Han get jealous of Leia's ex-boyfriend, and 3PO also had some nice moments that could potentially be thematically related to what he'll be going through in The Rise of Skywalker. But I'm pretty glad this series is getting a reboot. I'm very ready for Charles Soule to take over what I think has been the weakest ongoing Star Wars comic. Dr. Aphra issues 38 and 39 have almost taken us to the end of this series, at least until it gets relaunched next year. After the Empire captures her father, Aphra is forced to work with him to try to find where the rebels have set up their next base, and they learn that it's somewhere cold. Vader decides he only needs one of the archaeologists, and Aphra's father prepares to sacrifice himself, but Tolvin and her rebel task group swoop in to take Aphra for themselves. But of course, the rogue archaeologist manipulates Tolvin and escapes yet again after learning that the rebels are hiding on Hoth. She sends a message to Vader hinting at the base's location, but not fully giving it away just yet. As the final arc of the series wraps up before the reboot, I'm glad to say that I have enjoyed all 39 issues. Some arcs were better than others, of course, but overall, I've found Dr. Aphra to be entertaining through and through. Dark Temple issue 4 continued Seer and Cordova's mission on the planet Ontotho. Last issue, they negotiated a truce between the warring factions, but Cordova's curiosity gets the better of him, and he heads inside the temple everyone has been fighting over. Inside, he discovers connections to the Zepho, who play a significant role in Fallen Order. The peace between the two sides falls apart, and someone else runs inside the temple to activate something that could stop the fighting, I'm guessing violently. This series has been enjoyable so far and connected to the game far more strongly than I would have guessed. Target Vader's 5th issue finally took a turn into the unexpected. We've obviously known any assassination attempt on Vader wouldn't end well. Valance is captured, but then I think set loose so the Empire could follow him back to his homeworld, where he once knew some rebel sympathizers. They're no longer there, but it sounds like he might be willing to lead the Empire to the sympathizers. Now we're in a plot that isn't predictable, and I can appreciate the series a little bit more. Star Wars Adventures 28 continued the two stories that started in the previous issue. Chewbacca prevents some Wookiees from being enslaved on Kashyyyk with the help of his Porg friend Turbis, who salutes, which is adorable. In the second story, 3PO, R2, and BB-8 help a young girl sabotage an Imperial communications tower, but run into Director Orlok, an Imperial officer character that was introduced in Legends, and this is his first canon appearance. For Story of the Month, this was a tough choice. The Mandalorian is obviously groundbreaking for Star Wars, and the third episode was especially great, but Fallen Order was my favorite new story this month. It's not completely fair to compare the first half of a television show to an entire game, but I love everything about Fallen Order. Also, I'm pretty sure The Mandalorian is going to win next month since I don't consider the new movies in the running. Speaking of next month, we're getting 6 new comics, bringing Dark Temple, Dr. Aphra, and the main Star Wars run to a close with Empire Ascendant, as well as the start of the Rise of Kylo Ren series. We'll get 4 more episodes of Star Wars Resistance, and the final 4 episodes of Season 1 of The Mandalorian, and of course, we'll get to see the end of the Skywalker saga in Episode 9 on December 20th. But that's it for November. The Canon Update will return on January 1st to cover all the new content that came out in December. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all these stories as they release, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.